Alright, we're going to try to do a mini update, a 6-month update on the Polygon Siskiu T7 because I wanted to ride today, but after riding yesterday and being on antibiotics for a while, I just can't fit another ride in, so I might as well do this because I just passed the 6-month mark and wanted to go over some of the changes I made, changes I might make, but maybe highlight, the lack of changes I've needed to make. So right away, get out of the way the fact that I changed the essentially the color scheme, just the look of the bike. No big deal, just real cheap stickers to make it a bit more fitting to me personally. Never really liked the colors on this bike, but not a big deal. I would say the biggest thing I did is I did end up changing the fork, and this is so I ended up just going with a 35 gold RL from RockShox just because it's relatively easy to find these cheap and second hand because people take them off their new bikes, their stock bikes. So this isn't the fork I recommend you get necessarily. It is nice. It does have the upgraded debonair spring and 35mm stanchions, but it's still the base damper, nothing too special. Ideally try to find something more like a RockShox Yari, a Revelation. Most lyrics are too long for this bike. Don't upfork it too much. This fork is actually 150mm, whereas it comes stock with 140. I'm not a huge fan of it, especially, I mean, sometimes like in a rock garden, I don't necessarily mind it too much, but it did mess up the balance of the bike a bit more than I expected. On jumps, I really do feel like I'm pushed back, leaning back into my rear wheel, and I almost have trouble getting the front wheel down. So I've been trying to adjust my riding style to fit that. The fork performance itself is good. I think it's better than the Recon, but not by a night and day margin. I mean, I wouldn't even say I noticed it in the rock gardens as much. I don't have many really gnarly rock gardens here anyways, but hard hits on jumps, landings, overshooting has been a bit nicer, and I'm sure if I rode rock gardens more I might notice it more, but still I just want to clarify to not necessarily get this fork if you don't have to. Again, they're really easy to find secondhand, real cheap, so it's no skin off your back to try one, then maybe even upgrade it later. Which is what I might plan on doing. Not quite sure yet. Still have the Recon in the garage. Not sure which one I want to swap it back and sell the bike as is, etc. But if you're going to swap the fork, go for the Yari, Revelation, Marzocchi Bomber, something a bit higher end than the 35 Gold RL. The performance is just middling for me. Another upgrade I did end up making because I wanted to change the brakes, but brake availability has been a bit of a struggle. The brakes I want, I've only found them in, I think, rear, and I didn't want to do like one brake at a time if I was going to upgrade the whole thing. What I just did for now is I upgraded the pads to sintered to metallic, and then the rotors to 200 from the stock 180, and that's actually done pretty well. So this is still the Tektro 4-piston 2-piston mix set, and the performance was noticeable, definitely a worthy upgrade considering just pads. First of all, the pads are going to be great, and then if you want to do rotors, if you're a heavier guy like me, 200 pounds, then do those as well. But that's a very cheap upgrade. You can do that for a little over well, about $100, a little give or take, depending on, you know, if you find a good price. But just pads, rotors will really help out. For brakes, I'm either going to do MT520s or maybe SLX. It kind of depends on what's in stock. The prices aren't great, the availability isn't great, and I'm not sure how much more money I'm going to put into this bike in particular, or if I'll end up selling it and just starting off with something different. And then I also ended up doing the tire upgrade just because I slashed my Schwalbe, and it's funny because it's put me in a position where I'm just hoping that I slash my rear one, because they're not cheap to get a real quality tire, but my goodness, the performance difference is night and day. If you're gonna buy the bike new, I mean, if you're a new rider, just do whatever, ride the stock tires. But if you're like me and you already are gonna push the bike a bit, I would just take the brand new tires off and sell them, because they're a little wobbly in that lighter trail casing that they ship out with, and it's just been so nice to have a super consistent and firm downhill casing tire in the front. And I'll eventually put it on the rear. I kind of want to use the tire and sort of get my money's worth in those regards, but it does seem a shame to be just riding on less performance for sort of no reason. And then shock is totally fine, and derailleur, I mean, the Dior is just so impressive. As you can see, I've been beating the ever-living shit out of this thing, hitting rocks, dropping the bike down, tumbling it down the hill, really knocking it out of index a bit, and it just keeps coming back even without tinkering with it, working on the index. I mean, you just set the limit screws, get the index right initially, and it just stays there even after a beating, which is so amazing for such a, you know, cheaper, lower end model. And then I did end up doing the pedals and the saddle, of course. So grips are running real well. I was talking to Sean about his Polygon, and we're both pretty impressed by these grips as far as stock grips go, and we're just riding them until we destroy them. And it's, you know, I think both of us plan to eventually destroy them and swap them out, but it's just crazy how long they're lasting considering there's soft compound. Saddle, I finally kind of made peace with this WTB, I forget, I think it's Silverado. Finally made peace with this saddle. I'm not doing as long of rides anymore, so I'm not focusing so much on the saddle, but you do have to swap that damn thing out from the stock saddle. And pedals, I was enjoying the stock pedals for a bit, but once my riding was progressing, I have quite large feet in size 12 and wide feet, and I just didn't feel super comfortable on really challenging terrain with the stock pedals. So I just got these cheapo Amazon Crankbro knockoffs, and they're fine. They're whatever. It's just a larger platform, really, and that's really useful or necessary for size 12 shoe. And then there's not much to go over in terms of me recommending the bike. It's still the best value at that 2K mark, and unfortunately those price increases, I think in between like Brexit and COVID, Vitus just had some pretty significant price increases, so they kind of lost the real allure of being even lower priced than competitors like Polygon. So right now the only Vitus I would consider is the VRX, if you want that 140 horsed link type of bike, maybe better for bike park, or if you have a sizing issue. If you're real tall and you want to be on 27s, or if you're real short and you want to be on 29s, because they run the entire size range on both wheels, whereas Polygon does that mix where only medium gets both sizes. If you're looking into the Polygon lineup, I wouldn't go below that the D7. I think there's some merit to the D6, but the price is so close, I don't think there's a reason. I think it's like 100 or 200 off. Just really go out of the way to save that extra. At least get the D7. So that has that lower suspension, it has the wire bead tires, you know, whatever. You can just sell them if you want. You can ride wire bead and tubes for a while, and then go to tubeless when you're ready. And then up from that, you can get this bike, the T7, for $2K. And then ideally, obviously, if you have the funds, $2,500, get the T8, and that's gonna solve the fork problem right out the gate, because you won't have the recon. You're gonna have that awesome Fox suspension. It's going to alleviate the brake issue a bit more, because it's going to have Tektro 4 piston in the rear. So again, change the pads and change the rotor, and then you just have more benefits, such as the SLX drivetrain. And also, in my opinion, the black and dark purple colorway is a bit easier on the eyes, as well as easier to hide if you're going to use something like ride wrap. You know, kind of a frame wrap thing. Plays a bit nicer with that just two-tone moderate color, as opposed to this bike with its like triple tone, really loud Trek colors that are, I don't know, they don't look that good, and then when you put on a ride wrap, it's going to look even worse probably. So there's not much more to say, especially with the industry just getting wilder and wilder post-COVID. This is definitely the bike to get at $2K, and the T8 at $2,500. You can also check out the Vitus and the VRX if you want that 140 frame with the horse link. And then I usually like to recommend Giant Trance, but they've just upped the prices, and it just makes it even less compelling. You know, if you need to buy from a bike shop, Giant Trance is probably the way to go for value. But other than that, I just can't really recommend it for over $2,500. And it kind of got down-spec'd a bit, whereas the Polygon T8 is just at $2,500 with amazing SLX and Fox. And then lastly, I did want to mention, I wanted to try to make like some corrections on my initial impressions of the bike. So first of all, I mean, this bike is a 29er and it's in XL size, but generally the Polygons run heavy. So the bigger, if you're going to go 29er and the bigger size that you get, you're going to be hiding that weight a lot less, and it's really going to come out on the trail. And then if you have, you know, I mean, just particularly for bigger people riding bigger bikes, you're a 29er size XL, and if you're a heavier weight guy like me, close to 200 pounds, the bike is a bit active under pedaling. There's some bob, and it's just heavy. You know, I worried for a bit that the suspension linkage was not as efficient as I thought. I still think it's efficient, especially for a single pivot. I think they designed whatever leverage and progression they put into it, they designed it well. The bike is just heavy, and it's heavy initially, and then when you start, if you start to make upgrades like throwing a downhill tire or a beefier fork on it, well, you're just going to start compounding that issue to where it's not necessarily a bike I'd recommend for more basic trail riding, long days, cross-country exploring rides. If you're going to do something like that, see if you can just get a hardtail, first of all, or consider something a bit more mainstream, such as the Giant Trance. I think those bikes are just lighter overall, and are a better option for that. But if you're a bit more gravity focused like me, maybe even looking for like a mid-travel bike park smasher, you know, the Polygon T8 or T7 or the Vitus VRX are really going to fit that bill. And then just a quick reminder, if you are considering Polygon versus Vitus, that Mythique frame, you know, this frame comes with the internal cable routing, and it comes with a nice short seat tube that still inserts the dropper all the way, and it gets real low and out of the way. The Mythique cannot do that with the droppers. If you want to run a really short rigid seat post non-dropper for like bike park, then I think it's fine. The seat tube is low enough to where it gets out of the way, but the insertion, because of the kink on the Vitus frame, you're just not going to be able to get a dropper all the way down, even if you're getting a shorter one. So unfortunate, there's just sort of nothing you can do in those regards. Even when you slam it all the way down, it's going to be a bit up there, bucking you around, getting uncomfortable at times. So again, just to wrap it up, Polygon T7, T8, the best values for full suspension. You can try the Vitus Mythique VRX if you want the longer travel frame with the horse link, but I don't think it's that beneficial because the price is so close to the T8. So it depends on availability in your area, I guess, but I would definitely go T8, maybe the Mythique VRX. If those options don't fit you, maybe the Giant Trance, although those prices are going up, so the value isn't quite there, but you know, the whole industry is going up, so that's still an option, good option for a bike shop. And if you want something lighter and efficient, I would really recommend trying to stick with hardtails. You can do a lot on a hardtail. They're not that bad. Look into Vitus Sentier VR, or something like the Canyon Stoic, or even the Canyon Grand Canyon models, which are a bit more cross-country focused. So if you want lighter, if you want to do longer days, see about a hardtail, or get a Giant Trance. What you can do is get a used Giant Trance. They're kind of everywhere. Go on Pink Bike and Facebook, look them up, and they run real cheap. You can get them cheaper than these bikes, cheaper than the Polygon and Vitus brand new. But for brand new bike, best value, you're really not going to beat T7, T8. So that's my 6-month update. We're still planning on keeping this bike for now. If I see a really good deal come up, maybe one day I'll eventually switch. I really do want to go back to 27.5 or even a mullet if that's an option for me in the future. But for now, we're really settling into this bike, getting used to it, and enjoying it. So if you have questions about it, throw them in the comments. But overall, obviously, recommendation is this is the obvious pick for 2K, and the T8 is the obvious pick for 2500.